The war fought in South Africa in the years that bridged the 19th and 20th centuries is commonly referred to as the Boer War. It's wrong. More correctly, it's the Second Boer War, following the First Boer War fought some 20 years earlier. That war resulted in a resounding defeat for the British and a humiliating backdown by the then British Prime Minister William Gladstone. No British medals were awarded, and the conflict largely wiped from the British history books. The final outcome of the First Boer War, the signing of the London Convention in 1884, provided for full independence and self-government for the Boers, although still with British control over foreign relations. 2 years later, in 1886, a vast new gold deposit was found at Witwatersrand, 30 miles south of the Boer capital at Pretoria, reigniting British interest in the struggling republic, and in 1895 the then Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, Cecil Rhodes, authorised the botched Jameson raid under the command of Leander Starr Jameson, when 500 British South African Company police raided into Transvaal with the intention of triggering an uprising by the primarily British expatriate workers at the Transvaal, but they failed to do so. A last-ditch attempt at the Bloemfontein Conference in 1899 failed to solve the two countries' differences, and the Second Boer War broke out in October 1899, when Boer irregulars and militia attacked colonial settlements in nearby British colonies. Initially, the war went badly for Britain. They had not learnt their lessons of the First Boer War, and Boer tactics defeated British troops at the battles of Colenso, Megersfontein and Stromberg, and the towns of Ladysmith, Kimberley and Mafeking were placed under siege. British fortunes changed when the initial commander, General Redvers Buller, was replaced by Lord Roberts and Lord Kitchener in December 1899. They relieved the three besieged cities and invaded the Boer republics, the South Africa Republic and the Orange Free State, in early 1900 at the head of a 180,000-strong expeditionary force. Boer politicians either fled the region or went into hiding, and the British Empire officially annexed the two republics in 1900. However, numerous Boer fighters took to the hills and launched a guerrilla campaign against the British occupational forces. Led by prominent generals such as Louis Botha, Jan Smuts, Christian de Wet and Koos de la Rey, Boer guerrillas launched a campaign of hit-and-run attacks and ambushes against the British, which would continue for 2 years and proved difficult for the British to defeat, due in part to British unfamiliarity with guerrilla tactics and the extensive support for the guerrillas amongst the civilian population in the Boer republics. In response, the British High Command ordered several scorched earth policies to be implemented as part of a large-scale campaign. A complex network of blockhouses and strongpoints was constructed. British troops were ordered to destroy farms and slaughter livestock to deny them to the Boer guerrillas. And in a sinister move, a new word entered the lexicon of war when over 100,000 Boer civilians, mostly women and children, were forcibly relocated into concentration camps. In addition to these scorched earth policies, British mounted infantry units were deployed to track down individual Boer guerrilla units, and by now all battles being fought were small-scale skirmishes. Few combatants on either side were killed in action, with most casualties coming via disease. In an effort to bring an end to the conflict, Lord Kitchener began to offer generous terms of surrender to the remaining Boer leaders. The system of concentration camps was biting hard, and, desperate to see their fellow Boers released from the camps, the majority of Boer commanders accepted the British terms, and at the Treaty of Vereeniging, signed on the 31st of May 1902, the Boers formally surrendered. The Second Boer War was an unpopular war, with international opinion generally sympathetic to the Boers and hostile to the British. As a result, the Boer cause attracted thousands of volunteers from neutral countries from all over the world, and even within the United Kingdom there existed significant opposition to the war. Total British forces deployed in South Africa for the 2.5-year conflict topped 600,000 men. 22,000 were to die, the vast majority from disease. 3 times that number returned home either sick or wounded. The Boers, on the other hand, never numbered more than 70,000 and only lost about 6,000 men. The tragedy of the whole situation was that a further 26,000 Boer women and children died in the concentration camps. Following the surrender, the former republics were transferred into the British colonies of Transvaal and Orange River, and in 1910 were merged with Natal and the Cape Colony to form the Union of South Africa, a self-governing dominion within the British Empire. The story of the medals that were issued as a result of the Second Boer War should be simple. Unfortunately, it's not. Firstly, two monarchs are involved. Secondly, there were a host of unofficial medals issued, usually by private companies or individuals, and, lastly, a complicated system of medal clasps. In total, there were 4 official government-sanctioned medals awarded to personnel who took part in the war, only 2 of which are Victorian medals. The first, appropriately referred to as the Queen's South Africa Medal, was instituted by Queen Victoria in 1900 for award to military personnel and civilian officials who served in the South African conflict during the Second Boer War from the 11th of October 1899 to the 31st of May 1902. Those who qualified for the medal included members of the British Army, Royal Navy, hospital nurses, colonial forces from Australia, Canada, New Zealand and India, as well as locally raised units from the Cape of Good Hope and Natal. Some 178,000 medals were eventually issued. The obverse of the medal shows a crowned and veiled effigy of Queen Victoria, facing left, with the legend Victoria Regina et Imperatrix around the upper perimeter. The medal disc is 36 mm in diameter and it is made from silver. The essential design on the reverse, created by George de Saules, features Britannia holding a Union flag in her left hand and a laurel wreath in her right. In the background are troops marching inland from the coast. In the left background are 2 men of war, and Neptune's trident and Britannia's shield are on the ground in the foreground. Around the top perimeter are the words South Africa. Sounds all very simple, but no. As the medals were being initially issued in 1900, it was assumed that the war would be a short one, and the usual "it'll be over by Christmas" attitude prevailed. With that in mind, the first medals were struck with the years 1899 and 1900 on the reverse below Britannia's outstretched right hand, and approximately 50 of these medals were awarded before it became evident that the war was going to last much longer. Rather than restrike subsequent issues, the unissued medals with the dated minted on them were altered, with the offending dates being machined off. Unfortunately, the dates are still visible, and these are today referred to as ghost dates. As more medals were required, a new die was produced, without the dates. However, this presented us with another variant. The first die, with the dates, had Britannia's hand pointing at the R in Africa. The new die lowered the word, so now Britannia's points to the F. 1 medal, 3 different versions. The medal disc is suspended from its ribbon by a straight bar swivelling silver suspender that has a pin through the disc, and the ribbon, which is 32 mm wide, is red with 2 blue stripes and a broad orange central stripe. The recipient's name and details were impressed on the edge of the medal. However, some of the officers' medals were engraved. While the medal could be awarded without a clasp, mainly to nurses and some Royal Naval personnel, 26 were authorised, and this is where things get even more complicated. The clasps can be split into 3 different types: date, state, or battle clasps. The date clasps are self-explanatory, and there are 2 of them. South Africa 1901, awarded to all those who served in South Africa during 1901, and South Africa 1902, awarded to all those who served in South Africa from the 1st of January to the 31st of May 1902. One could be awarded either or both. However, one did not receive any of these clasps if they qualified for the King's South Africa Medal, of which we will see more of shortly. The second type of clasp sanction was the state clasp, of which there are 5: Cape Colony, Natal, Rhodesia, Orange Free State and Transvaal. One could receive 1 or more of these clasps for service within that state between various dates. That said, the clasps for Cape Colony and Natal were never issued together. The last group of clasps were known as battle clasps, and there are 19 available for various battles and sieges during the course of the war. If a recipient was entitled to receive a battle clasp, then the state clasp he would have been due was removed. For example, a soldier who took part in the relief of Ladysmith in Natal in early 1900 would have been entitled to the state clasp from the towel. However, his medal would have only displayed the battle clasp, the state clasp having been removed. An example of how this looks is shown here. Awarded to a Highlander, this soldier served in the states of Transvaal, Cape Colony and the Orange Free State. Having fought no battles in the first two states, he retains the state clasps. However, as he was present at the Battle of Wittbergen, the state clasp for Orange Free State has been removed and replaced by the relevant battle clasp. Also, for now, note the absence of any date clasps. The second Victorian medal issued for service in the Second Boer War was, ironically, awarded for service far from the shores of South Africa. The Queen's Mediterranean Medal, authorised by her son, King Edward VII, was awarded to militia troops who had replaced the regular army counterparts in the various military garrisons across the Mediterranean in Gibraltar, Malta and Egypt, thus allowing regular troops to be available for service at the front. The medal and ribbon are identical to the Queen's South Africa medal, except on the reverse, where the inscription South Africa has been replaced by the word Mediterranean. No clasps were awarded. Approximately 5,000 were issued to eligible officers and men of various militia battalions, including this one to Private J. Wynne of the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers. Queen Victoria died on the evening of the 22nd of January 1901 at the age of 81. Her son and successor, King Edward VII, was at her side, and she had reigned for 63 years, 7 months and 2 days. But while the Victorian age had ended, the war in South Africa had not, and 2 further medals from the new monarch were still to come. The first, the King's South Africa Medal, was awarded to all British and colonial military personnel who had served in the war in South Africa and who were in the theatre on or after the 1st of January 1902 and who had completed 18 months of service in the conflict prior to June 1902. The medal was never awarded singly, but always alongside the Queen's South Africa Medal. 2 clasps were awarded, the previously mentioned date clasps. Anyone entitled to receive either of these 2 clasps and the King's South Africa Medal wore the clasp with this medal and not the Queen's. Should one be entitled to the date clasp but not the King's Medal, then the clasp was worn with the Queen's Medal. If we return to the example seen earlier, we see that the Highlander's Queen's Medal is missing its date clasps. That is because they are proudly displayed alongside on his hard-earned King's Medal. The King's Medal was always issued with a clasp, with the exception of nursing sisters, who qualified for the medal but not the clasps. The King's South Africa Medal is a silver disc, 36mm in diameter. The obverse shows King Edward VII in a Field Marshal's uniform, facing left, with the legend Edward VII Rex Imperator around the upper perimeter. The reverse is identical to the Queen's South Africa Medal, displaying marching troops and Britannia. The ribbon is 32mm wide, with equal vertical stripes of green, white and orange, representing the countries in which the campaign took place, green and white for the South African Republic, and orange and white for the Orange Free State. The last medal to be awarded for the conflict was somewhat unusual, as it was issued to acknowledge the service of the mercantile marine, being awarded to masters and officers of merchant ships employed in the transport service to move troops to either South Africa during the Boer War or to China during the Boxer Rebellion. Officers of hospital ships also qualified to receive this medal. 2 clasps were sanctioned, that for South Africa 1899-1902 and China 1900, with a total of 1,719 medals eventually awarded. With Victoria's passing, it was an end of an era. Victorian wars, from minor tribal clashes in Africa to hard-fought battles in Europe, spanned the globe. Millions of men took part, many never to return home, and, as often as not, the only thing they had to show for their service to their empire was a small, shiny silver disc. Long after these men have passed into history, these discs remain, some battered and bruised, some beautiful and pristine, and it is my hope that we and future generations preserve and honour these tokens of service and sacrifice. This series has highlighted the history and details of over 30 of these treasures, and I hope you have enjoyed the journey. Thank you for watching.